All right, geometry students, so we are going to take a break from surface area and do something completely different. We're going to do a unit on trigonometry. This is a really important unit. It shows up on a lot of college entrance exams, standardized testing, and it's just a really interesting thing to know also. Okay, so it's called trigonometry, and we're gonna take it slow because we're doing distance learning. The first thing I just really want you guys to know is it's all about triangles, and it's all about right triangles. Okay, so we're gonna start just by drawing some right triangles. Okay, so I want you guys just to go ahead and draw me a nice right triangle. Okay, doesn't matter what it looks like really. Okay. This is going to be your right angle right there, okay? And the first thing, all we're going to do is we're going to practice naming the three sides, okay? So the way this works is you have to reference a certain angle. So what I'll do on the homework and stuff is I'll put like a letter here. Sometimes I use A or B or C, okay? So it means that everything is referenced from this angle, okay? There are three sides, okay? I'm going to spell them all out the long way. There's always a hypotenuse. And we're going to use HYP for an abbreviation for that, so we don't have to write it out every time. There's always an opposite side, okay, and we're going to use OPP for that. And there's always an adjacent side, okay, and we're going to use ADJ for that, okay. And remember, you always have to reference it from angle A. So the easy one is the hypotenuse, because the way this works is wherever the 90-degree angle is, you go across from that, okay? And that side is always the hypotenuse, okay? It's always the longest side, okay? So the hypotenuse is always the longest side, okay? And then there's other two sides, which we've always just called legs, but now we have to differentiate between them. There's, if you take angle A and you go directly across, that would be the side opposite angle A. And then you see how this side makes up part of that angle? This is what we call the adjacent leg. So from this angle across from it's the opposite leg. The one that shares, like one of the rays makes up the angle is called the adjacent, and then the hypotenuse is across from the 90. Okay, all right, so let's do one more example. Let's just draw a triangle that looks kind of different. So let's draw it this way. All right, so again, I have to give you an angle. Let's just give you like K this time, because it could be called pretty much whatever, okay? So always find the 90 degrees, go across from that, and that one's called the hypotenuse, okay? Then you're left with two legs, okay? There's an opposite leg and an adjacent leg, and it's referenced from this angle. So if you go find K, go point an arrow across from it, that one's called the opposite. And the one that's touching it is called the adjacent. Okay, so part of your homework is just going to be practicing that. Okay, all right, then there's this other thing that's really important. Okay, there are three trig ratios. Okay, the long way to spell them is sine, okay, which we abbreviate SIN, okay, cosine, which we abbreviate COS, and tangent, which we abbreviate TAN, okay? Each of these is a ratio between two of these sides of a triangle, okay? So the sine and cosine and tangent of a certain angle is just a ratio, like 2/3 or 1/2 or something like that, okay? All right, so I'm gonna write this out really carefully. You need to write this in your notes, okay? If you have the sine of an angle, so this is an angle, the sine of an angle is always the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. Okay? The cosine of an angle is always the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. Okay? And the tangent of an angle is always the opposite side divided by the adjacent. So I want you guys to write these down. Put them somewhere where you can refer to them, because we're going to be using these for at least a couple weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, okay? All right, so let's practice how you would do this. Okay, so I want you guys to draw a triangle on your paper, right triangle, okay, like this, okay? And I want you guys to label the sides 7, 24, 25, okay? So this is a triplet. I'm picking a triplet because the numbers are easy to work with. Okay, and then let's go ahead and just call this angle B. Okay, so this is how the problems are going to look. I'm going to say, what is the sine of B? Okay, so you go here and you say, okay, she means the sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So what I would highly recommend doing as your very first step is just to write what these are. So across from the 90, whoa, that pin's dead. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, so this side represents the hypotenuse. Okay, across from the angle is the opposite, so this is the opposite, and then this one would be the adjacent. Okay, we know that sine is the opposite divided by the hypotenuse, so the opposite divided by the hypotenuse would be 7/25. Okay, all right. The cosine of an angle, it says right here, is the adjacent divided by the hypotenuse. So from B, the adjacent is 24, the hypotenuse is 25. Okay, and then it says the tangent of an angle is the opposite side divided by the adjacent side. So from B, the opposite is 7, and the adjacent is 24. Okay, and that's it. Okay, sine, cosine, tangent are ratios. Let me get out of your way. So these are the answers. Okay, all right, let's practice one more problem. So we have a triangle. Let's draw it this way. Okay, and let's call this D, and let's call this 8, 15, 17. Okay, so I'm just going to use triplets for this. I'm only going to use triplets in your homework also, okay, for this one. All right, so again, it says, what is the sine of D? Okay, so D's over here now, okay? First thing I always want you guys to do is decide what these are called. So across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. Okay, across from the angle is the opposite, and then this one will be the adjacent. Okay, remember the hypotenuse is always the longest one, so it's also really good help. Okay, so the sine of an angle says it's the opposite over the hypotenuse. So from D, the opposite is 8, the hypotenuse is 17. Okay, cosine. Okay, so we're at D, the cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Okay, and then the tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. So opposite over adjacent. All right, so that's all the lesson for today. This is really important. We're going to take it slow. Again, if anything from the video confuses you, you can come to my office hours or ask me in the Zoom classes. Okay? All right, thanks guys. Bye.